Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about one of the most serious crises unfolding in the world. The devastating water shortage in Iran that has left millions struggling for basic access to water, with reports saying as many as 28 million people could be without reliable water supplies. Iran's water crisis didn't happen overnight. It's the result of a combination of factors including long-term drought, climate change, unsustainable water use, and deep-rooted policy and infrastructure problems that have left the country water systems unable to meet the needs of its population and economy. For years now, Iran has been facing one of the driest periods in decades. Rainfall across the country is dramatically below normal, with some regions recording rainfall levels far below average, in some cases more than 80% less than what's typical for this time of year. Scientists and officials alike say this has led to what some describe as almost historic drought conditions, perhaps the worst in over half a century. The capital city of Tehran, home to more than 15 million people, illustrates how severe the situation has become. Several major dams that once supplied the city with water are now virtually empty, operating at only a fraction of their typical capacity. Officials have warned that at current consumption rates, available water could run out within weeks if new sources of rainfall or other measures aren't found. This has led to water being rationed in many parts of the country. Taps are running dry for hours at a time, pressure in pipes drops overnight, and families are forced to store water in tanks or wait in line for deliveries just to have enough for drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. People are facing daily uncertainties about whether they'll have enough water to fill their buckets, wash clothes, or care for young children. It's not just Tehran. Major cities like Mashhad and others across various provinces are seeing their water reserves shrink dramatically. Some regions report levels so low that residents are forced to change how they live their daily lives, cutting showers short, limiting laundry, and doing whatever they can to conserve every drop of water they have. A key driver of this crisis is climate change. Rising temperatures have increased evaporation and reduced snowpack that once helped feed rivers and reservoirs. The heat waves that have hit Iran, sometimes pushing temperatures beyond 50 degrees Celsius, make the water shortage even more painful and immediate as demand rises while supply drops. Climate change by itself, however, isn't the whole picture. Years of water mismanagement and short-sighted planning have exacerbated what might have otherwise been difficult but manageable drought conditions. Iran has built hundreds of dams, drilled countless wells, and allowed groundwater to be extracted far faster than it can naturally recharge. These decisions have depleted underground aquifers and lowered water tables in many regions, making the crisis even more acute. In some areas, the over-extraction of groundwater has had dramatic side effects. Land that once rested on saturated soils is now sinking, a process called subsidence, because the support once provided by water in the ground is gone. Cities like Isfahan are literally sinking in places as a result, damaging infrastructure and threatening buildings, roads, and people living there. Agriculture plays a huge role in the crisis too. About 90% of Iran's water is used for farming, even though agriculture accounts for a much smaller percentage of the country's overall economy. Much of this water use is inefficient, with outdated irrigation methods and water-intensive crops that strain an already fragile system, all while the country faces increasingly dry weather. This imbalance, high agricultural demand, and limited natural supply, has meant that every drop of groundwater taken to irrigate crops is a drop less available for cities and towns. Over decades, this has led to a net loss in the water that normally replenishes aquifers, leaving wells shallow and reservoirs dry. The human impact is heartbreaking. Families living in areas with intermittent or no running water have to adapt their days around supply cycles. Parents worry about whether there will be water to care for children or to prepare meals. In more rural areas, farmers are losing their livelihoods as crops fail without irrigation. This isn't just inconvenience, it's a growing humanitarian issue affecting millions of livelihoods, health, and well-being. In some neighborhoods, residents install large water tanks at homes to store whatever water comes through, hoping it will last until the next delivery. Others are buying water or relying on water trucks that travel long distances to fill containers that would once have come straight from the tap. The government has taken a number of steps in response, though many experts say these are short-term measures that won't solve the deeper problems. One of the more unusual measures includes cloud seeding operations, attempts to encourage rainfall by seeding clouds with chemicals in hopes of triggering precipitation. While this can sometimes produce rainfall, scientists stress that its effectiveness is limited and uncertain in conditions as dry and widespread as Iran's drought. Other officials have even said the country is prepared to import water, not just water itself, but virtual water, in the form of importing water-intensive goods, so that water isn't used domestically for those products. Iran is also considering costly engineering projects like desalination and long-distance water transfers, including from the Persian Gulf to inland regions. Some of these plans are technologically ambitious, but come with huge financial and environmental costs. These discussions indicate just how desperate the situation has become. When a nation considers importing water or spending vast sums on infrastructure that was once seen as too expensive or impractical, but while large engineering solutions might help in specific areas, many experts emphasize that fundamental changes in how water is managed and used are essential for long-term survival. Efficient irrigation, better water monitoring, reduction of waste, and policies that balance agricultural and urban demands are all part of what's needed to prevent further catastrophe. There are also calls for more transparent data sharing and integrated planning between different government ministries and local authorities to coordinate water use more effectively. Without collaboration and good governance, piecemeal solutions are unlikely to reverse the deep structural problems that have built up over decades. For everyday Iranians, the crisis has also sparked frustration and outrage. Many feel that leadership has failed to anticipate or properly manage the water shortage, and there is growing public pressure for accountability and meaningful action. People are sharing stories of hardship, joining social media conversations, and mobilizing at community levels to push for fairer water distribution. The water shortage is also reshaping how people think about water. Some communities, once careless with usage, are now deeply conscious of every drop limiting showers, reusing water where they can, and storing rainwater when possible. But these personal efforts, while important, can only do so much without systemic change. Internationally, Iran's water emergency is seen as a warning sign of how climate change and resource mismanagement can combine to create crises that are not isolated to one region. Many countries around the world face similar vulnerabilities in their water systems. Experts say that understanding and learning from Iran's experience is crucial for global water security planning. The situation brings up tough questions about equity and sustainability. When water becomes scarce, who gets priority? Cities, farmers, industry? How can long-term resilience be built into societies that have grown dependent on abundant water supplies? Answering these questions requires leadership, investment, and a willingness to make hard choices. Despite all the challenges and grim headlines, there are glimmers of resilience among local communities. People are forming neighborhood groups to share resources more fairly. NGOs are stepping in with education and support programs, and activists are raising awareness about environmental protection and conservation. Yet for many households, relief feels distant. The knowledge that taps may run dry without warning, that reservoirs, once symbols of security, are nearly empty, and that water scarcity could remain a defining feature of life for years to come, weighs heavily on the population. The crisis underscores an undeniable truth. Water is the foundation of life, economies, and civilizations. When that foundation is shaken, everything built on it, from health and food security to social stability, is at risk. Iran's struggle highlights this reality in stark terms, reminding the world that water scarcity isn't just an environmental issue, but a human one that affects us all. As we watch this story unfold, it's important to stay informed and to think about how water resources are valued, managed, and protected in our own communities. The lessons from Iran can inform global conversations about climate adaptation, responsible stewardship, and shared responsibility for a resource that connects us all. Thank you for sticking with this deep look at the crisis affecting millions of lives. If you found this insightful, consider sharing it, discussing it with others, and staying tuned for more thoughtful explorations of issues shaping our world.